Okay, welcome to Tanya Inside Out Tashim Pei Hey at G4, chapter 4. This chapter is called The Godly Soul and What It Does. So we introduced the animal soul in chapter 1, and that's our default perspective. If you're a normal human being, a normal Jew, you look at the world as a human being. Okay? That's why it's number 1. First things first, yeah? Then the second chapter was the essence, it's like what is the godly soul? Where does it come from? We said it comes from Chochmah Elah, from the highest place in Etzilus, whatever that means. It's from a very high place in the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's called a Chelek Elokai Mimal, a piece of God, Mamash. And then last chapter 3, we were talking about what the godly soul is made of. And then we discussed how the godly soul, the Nefesh Elokis, has a soul, yeah? We call that Ratzon. And it has an intellect, like a head, call that Seichel. And it has a body, which is emotions, which is called Midas. And then it has even Levushim, garments, which is called behavior. Yeah, so we have this entire, and that goes also for the animal soul. We'll discuss that in class 6, in chapter 6, but the point is that the Nefesh Elokis is a complete, you'd call it a partsuf. It's not really that right. It's a complete thing, being, creature. I don't know what you call it, but it's a complete thing with a structure, with an anatomy, with clothes, with desires, etc. Yeah, so it's not. So this is like the first thing that the Tanya is trying to do, is trying to take us away from the old. It's a distraction, right? Who's it? He's yours?
No, but I'll get rid of him.
Who's it?
Show him the door.
Who's it?
Hey, Aaron.
Peaches.
Come inside with me.
Okay. Square.
Isaac.
1 minute. I lost my train of thought. What are we holding?
Right here. Throwing the kid out.
Just before throwing the kid out.
Roller coaster.
The what?
The roller coaster.
So we're in between the roller coasters and after the barbecue, before the kid.
The parts of
Different parts of the body.
It's a complete. I think we moved on a little. Anyway, okay. It's a complete being, yeah, and a complete being means that it has an essence. This is to really like boil it down, yeah. It has an essence, and it has an expression of essence. Okay, we haven't really discussed its essence. Like we spoke about its essence, we didn't really. You can't really say anything about the essence. There's nothing to say about essence. There's no thing, so there's no thing to say about the essence. So you can like kind of scoot around it and mention a few, like some stuff, but you can't discuss an essence. It's one. It's just the essence. That's it. It's undifferentiated. But then there's the expression, the final. That's the whole system. The very beginning is essence, and the end is expression, yeah, which is called garments, which is behavior. So this is where chapter 4 really picks up, and the idea is understanding what the garments of the Nefesh Elokis are, and we need to understand just what garments are. Bichlal, yeah, levushim. Begadim, generally spoken about as levushim. We need to understand what is behavior, and then we're going to see it in context of the Nefesh Elokis. Okay, but behavior it's also, there's human behavior. So this shir, until we start talking about the Nefesh Elokis, would be just as shaykh to human beings as it is to Yisrael. Okay, so first things first, why is behavior called garments? And it's amazing. because by Chazal calling behavior garments, you learn so much, like what behavior is. So to discuss garments, let's discuss what garments are, yeah?
Facade.
Well,
It's a facade.
Expression.
maybe
it's
not.
It's identification who the person
It's
wants to
expression.
It's
be.
the
What's in?
opposite. It's an expression, that's for sure. Oh, Shalom. So garments, just in time. Garments.
Nice.
Square.
Shalom.
So Yoel said that garments cover up, yeah, they're a facade, yeah, which they do, they cover you, but at the same time they cover you so to express you.
In order to reveal.
So yeah, but they can be. So
Aperture. Aperture?
let's not go there.
It's what you want to see the world to be perceived as something. So you make a costume.
Your identity.
It's well, you can they can give you an identity. You can identify with your garments, or you can just wear your clothes. They're not your identity. They don't have to be your identity. And then you can identify with anything.
So it's a protection.
The what?
A protection.
A protection. Yeah. That I don't know how that ties in with. That's the one thing that I don't know how that ties in with behaviour. I'm sure it does, but
Well, a police officer with a certain uniform, and that's identifying him as someone who has certain rights. So that's what he's doing. He's a functional.
but that's an expression of who he is. But that's
At
not.
that moment, that's who he is. He's now representing society, and he's going to enforce the law. So you have to.
Well, you're answering. Well, you just said
I'm saying
protection.
That's what a doctor. If a doctor comes to operate with shorts on, something is wrong.
Yeah, but that's not protect. The clothes actually. Yeah, I don't know if clothes protect you. They keep you warm. They like protect you from the elements.
It makes you behave as a protection because you act certain ways around certain people to protect yourself. You behave differently in front of different types of people.
Yeah, but I don't know if you can even call garments a protection. They're not really a protect. Like there are protective garments.
It's separation. Separation.
You don't let
from
people
us.
in.
That's it. What?
You don't let people in. You have like pizzas with the garment.
That would be more like armor, like regular clothes are not a protection.
Right.
You need special clothes. That's more like armor. So I don't. So that's why I don't think that's not part of the. That's not part of.
Saying clothes are physical. What the physical clothes are, the garments.
Well, if we understand what garments are, we'll understand
they
what behavior
represent.
is. Well, there's a lot of stuff. So look, let me put you out of your misery. So they express us, and I don't know what the order. I think the order I wrote 2 years ago, I completely disagree with now. Yeah, I would say the most important thing about garments. No, I don't know. I don't know. I could argue anyway. I'm just going to vomit it out, and you can. That wasn't a nice thing to say, and you can kind of decide what you think is more important. I don't know what the order is. Yeah, but number one, you put them on, take them off. Garments come and go.
Not permanent.
Not only are they not permanent, they're time bound. You put them on and you take them off.
They're not always the same.
You check. Wait. Let's. Okay. First things first. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of stuff, and if you get this clear, you understand what behaviour really is. It's really amazing. Really amazing. I can't think of that many more things that are more important than understanding this. So you put them on, you take them off. Yeah. That's number one. But again, I don't know the order. Yeah. Number two is they express who you are. Like you said, a policeman. That's got a uniform, yeah? If you're like all business, you're down to business, you dress in a certain way. If you're like very spontaneous and easygoing, you're dressed in another way. If you're Haredi, you're dressed in a third way, yeah? Whatever. So it's an expression of who you are, okay? They're not you. They're very, very close to you, yeah, but they're not you. You can wear somebody else's garments. You could dress up. You wear fancy dress. You could wear somebody else's garments, yeah? I could take your clothes and put them on. There's also the Indian of loose garments and tight garments. Like there's stiff garments and, there's like khaki shorts and a t-shirt, and then there's a bow tie and a three-piece suit, yeah? Much harder to move around in a bow tie and a three-piece suit. Then you've got you can steal. You can wear stolen garments. That's similar to wearing somebody else's garments. We can actually steal garments. So the most important ones I see are the Inyan of being time bound. You put them on, you take them off. Okay. The Inyan that they're not you. Then there's the Inyan of wearing somebody else's garments. Now that might not be so important for a human. That's going to be extremely important. Hands down the most important part of understanding behavior as a Jew. You can wear somebody else's behavior. Okay? That's going to be the difference between the human and Yisrael in this year, the main difference. Okay, so behavior, you put it on and you take it off. Meaning, behavior is, everyone knows what the three modes of behavior are. Three modes of behavior. The three modes of behavior.
Passive.
Thought, speech, action. Those are the three modes of behavior. So everyone knows that action is behavior, doing stuff. Everyone knows that speaking is a behavior. Yeah, but also thinking is a behavior. Thinking is like the undergarment. You have madrigas of garments. You have a garment that actually sticks to your skin. Yeah, your undershirt. Then you have like your tzitzis or your shirt. That's further away, and then you have your rechel, which is even further away. Yeah, and that would be thought, speech, and action. Thought is literally touching the soul. Yeah, that's your undergarment. Speech is then the middle ground. It's not really thought. It's not really action. It is thought. It is action. Whatever. You can't really. That's what it is. And then behavior, actual action, physical deed. Yeah, that is the outer garment. That's the furthest from the soul. So number one is you put them on, you take them off. Behavior, by definition, begins and ends. So you're dancing. Yeah, that's a behavior. You begin to dance, then you stop to dance. That's obvious. Speaking, you can stop talking in mid-sentence. Yeah, you begin to speak and you end to speak. And even thinking is the same. Although thinking, to be able to actually control your thinking, takes a huge amount of practice and maybe even skill, but definitely a lot of practice. But you are in control. A regular person who hasn't put energy into trying to get in control of his thinking, yeah, you can distract yourself and replace one thought with another thought, which is what I spent many years doing as I've said this before, but just a very, very practical, like a super practical avoider is as a photographer and a photography teacher. For many years I'm holding in graphics, yeah, in visuals and understanding the image, yeah. So, I could spend half an hour discussing the imagery and what I'm looking at in front of me with the svarim and with the vertical lines, the horizontal lines, and the perspective and the shadows and the colours and the textures and the patterns and etc. The contrast, the relationship between the light and the dark. I could talk about that for a long, long time. Yeah. So the way that I was zeicha to get a blian horror, to get a good shlita over my thinking, was that I conditioned myself that whenever I would be having a thought that wasn't productive, whether it was a self-involved thought or usually unproductive thoughts are about yourself, yeah. Whenever there was a thought that was, first things first, you have to learn how to recognize when you're thinking a negative thought. Yeah, that was the avoider of reclaiming sanity. That's that book. Yeah, read that book a few times, and you'll become a master of recognizing when a negative thought creeps in. Most people don't even know what I'm talking about right now. Regular human beings don't realize that there's an avoider available in thought. Yeah, which is a tragedy, mamash, because it's probably the most important avoider there is. So what I would do is once I developed that sensitivity to realizing when I was thinking a negative thought, yeah. Wherever I was, I would just start analysing on a graphical level wherever I was. Oh, look at that tree. Look at the way the green contrasts with the blue. and then look at how the different hues and tones of the green and the textures of the, and I would just start analysing the graphics of wherever I was. And within usually between 5 and 10 seconds, that negative thought's gone away. It might come back. You have to start doing it again. Be an action, yeah. And after doing that for, I don't know. I put it this way: I don't need to do it anymore. I Kimat don't have any. My biggest avoider now is. Well, it depends what takuf I'm going through, but because I don't have. I've just done this avoider for so long. But just like if you lift, what do they call it? You can end up picking up a big weight. So if you do this avoider for very long, not only are you able to push away any negative from but they just don't come. They just don't come. So it really is very available. It really is. You just first, the two avoiders is, number one, you have to recognize when these thoughts come, yeah, which takes some practice. And then number two, I could use my graphics thing. You could do, everyone could do a different, whatever you're expert in, that you could spiel off. Whatever thing you could do that you could spiel off, that will, if, Lahavdil. Yeah, like Lahavdil, if you know Mishnayos, if you know Mishnayos Baal Peh, I had a friend who did it like this. He knows Mishnayos Baal Peh. And he would just cause Mishnayos. You could do that. You could just, whatever it is to replace that negative thinking, yeah? The point is you're in control of your thinking. Yeah, believe it or not. You're mamash in control of your thinking. Just most of us think we're not. But that's an erroneous thought. It just takes a bit of practice. Just like you can't lift certain things right now. Yeah, you go to the gym and work out, you'll be able to lift them. It's the same with thinking, yeah? But what is available to us right now is if we recognise that a negative thought comes, is the Pashat way of describing it is called to be Masir Das. To distract yourself, think about something else. So either way...
So you said you can reach a certain point where the negative thoughts don't even come in at all. You're not defending them. There's just there's blockage. They don't come in.
I don't know about never.
There's a lot more blockage.
Kimat is not much of a problem anymore. Kimat is not much of a problem.
It's possible.
It's definitely not much of a problem anymore. And in the past, everyone's ridden with bad thoughts. But what happens is, what the thought catches, you have a bad thought. Then what the thought does is, we're going to speak about this, is it messes with your physiology. Yeah, there's a guy called Joe Dispenza. You heard of this guy? You read his stuff?
I heard him.
Yeah. So he's a really good guy to read. Like, he's got lots of stuff. It's a real slog to read it, but it's really worth reading it. He explains it so clearly that emotions, kitza, at least the expression of them, are physiological. Your body, it's actually, it could be three things. It could be electrical, mechanical, or, which it nearly is, like probably 95+% of the time, is chemical. Okay, but your heart is mechanical and your heart pumps in different ways, different rhythms or different speeds. Then there's electrical, which is your nervous system that can do funny stuff to you as well. But the ruba of your emotions are chemical from the endocrine system, which basically means your brain secretes actual chemicals, chomer, liquid, like mamash. If you were a really good chemist, you could take out and say, oh, you're feeling like this right now, and you could pick up a little vial and say, right now you've got this chomer running through your veins. That's why you feel like this. That's why drugs work.
Releases certain things, like serotonin.
Yes, serotonin, dopamine, all these things are just drugs. That's emotions for the most part. Again, it's a little more complicated, but not much more complicated. But it's a very helpful thing to know. Now, so what happens is when we're having a negative thought and we start feeling like, what you're saying in your mind is, most people are like, I'm just useless, I'm worthless, I'm the worst, I'm the lowest, like there. And they're thinking that what that is, the way I understand it, is an emotion that becomes melubish and oisius. You don't really feel like you're the worst, the loser, the mamash, a waste of space, yeah? You feel icky. You feel icky, and that icky feeling wraps itself in letters. Yeah, however, whatever your nature, nurture, your experiences, etc., yeah? It wraps itself in letters, and that turns into sentences, depending on your thing, depending on you, and it will turn in for many people like, I'm just a waste of space. Some people it might turn into, I want to go out and kill someone. Other people it might turn into, I want to watch something disgusting on the internet, whatever it is, yeah? So, now what happens is once that emotion, let's call it emotion, gets wrapped within letters and starts generating meaning, now that feeds back into the moichin, and surprise, surprise, that generates more of that feeling. And that's what it's doing. Just like anything that exists wants to continue to exist, that's the same with the emotion. So when you get an angry thought, it will create angry thought. So when you get an angry feeling, whatever that is, it's not an angry feeling, it's a whatever it is, you can't call it an angry feeling. It becomes identified with angry thinking. And that creates more of that feeling, which creates more of that thinking, and then you either have to go to bed or drink something or however it goes away. It can eventually go away, but that's the emotional thought loop.
Yeah. Isn't there, if we have a machshava, we believe it comes from Hashem. Hashem is giving us that machshava at that time for a specific reason?
It's from the survival of the Nefesh HaBahamis.
I don't know. I hear your question. I don't know the answer to your question.
That's the same question. Where does this whole come? Because it comes from a survival on a sick survival mechanism of the Nefesh HaBahamis where all these things happen, and
the answer to that, the actual anger, it's just sort of anger. The actual anger itself wants to continue to exist.
Who's the is another person? No, it's me.
It's a no, it's not. No, it's not. That's called a shin daled. You could call it. It's a malach. It's a malach. Don't. You are a community. It's a very important idea to understand this. You're a community. We just in our sophisticated Lashon of 2025, we will call it enzymes and what they called enzymes. Hormones, exactly. We've got all these fancy words. Yeah. Yesteryear they just called them demons and angels. Same thing. That's exactly what they are. Call them what you want to call them. Yeah, but you're a community of, you're mamash a community. There's a lot of things going on in us, yeah? So that thing, that anger, its MO is to continue to be. That's what we've said many times. If a person's become identified with his anger, and you turn around to him and say, relax man, chill out. Yeah, he gets more angry. Because you're like turning him out.
Killing him, you're killing him.
It's exactly the same as handing him a gun and say, kill yourself. It's just a different being. He's become identified with that being. You keep that in mind. It's an important idea. We call them malachim. Anyway.
How does this translate into more conventional thinking? Like, I mean, if you get really angry and you're just sure that you're angry, so we all get that. That's a bad place to be. We need to get rid of that thought. We should think psukim. We should look at whatever's on the wall, right? That's clear. But most of our thinking is not so, shlili like that. Most of our thinking is we're worried about something, let's say, the most common thing, you're worried about a financial issue. So then you're like trying to work that out in your head, right? And
usually you're not trying to work it out in your head.
That's what I'm saying.
Why are you worried about the financial thing, though? Where's that coming from? Because there's lack of money? Because there's actually something right now you're in danger?
Let's say your kid's, school is calling and saying, we need tuition.
There's a difference between working out a plan and thinking about something.
Anxiety.
It's a completely different. You're talking about anxiety. Yeah. There's daigers and atzvus. It's not really the right time to speak about this, but that is. Yeah, all of this is connected to Nefesh HaBahamis, but that is, to boil it down. This is a whole shir in itself. To boil it down, and a Mavin Yovin, Daigers and Atzvus, yeah, anxiety and depression, are the two sides of the same coin. Daigers is you thinking about yourself projected into the future, and Atzvus, depression, is you thinking about yourself projected into the past. Yeah, think about that. We'll get there in another half a year or so.
That's
If we
not
get there.
what you're talking about.
What does it? Well, it's
So
all
has,
connected. It's all connected. But the point is that when these emotions are, we're speaking about raging anger. You're right. Most of my emotions aren't raging anger. Yeah, but most of the emotions are, a kind of low level, defeatist, hopeless kind of, background noise that just keeps you, generally like
What about
low.
happiness? What
You know
about
what I'm saying?
happiness and joylessness?
The process is the same.
It's the same
Both-
problem. I have to get rid of it.
No, it's the same
no.
process, but
It's not you. It's
Let's go. We are touching on these. These are all beautiful things to speak about. And in the last year, what was it, Tanya Wide Open? We would have gone over there, but we're trying to let's stay focused. Okay, but they're all good questions. Okay, the point is that behaviour is something that begins and something that ends. Okay, where we just got into the whole thing of thinking, but thinking is also a behaviour that begins and that ends. Yeah, you are not your thinking. That is one of the most important takeaways from this class. You are not your thinking. You are the one that thinks. You are the one that thinks, but you are not the thinking. Just like the screen is not the image. The image plays on the screen, but a screen's a screen. You're you, you're not your thinking. Now the problem is, what about, I'll tell you, I'll let you in on a secret, a dark secret of mine, yeah? Which I know that everybody else also has these kinds of secrets, is when I'm walking up the stairwell to my house, if I'm holding one of my young children, it always flits through my mind the idea of dropping him down the, not I want to drop him down, what would it look like, how would it, and I'm like, yeah, and I hate myself for it. For many years I hated myself until I realised what it was, yeah? And I just, that's disgusting, meaning I'm really I'm evil. That's really what I'm thinking, is that why would those thoughts flash through my mind if I wasn't an evil person, I mean, I'd be broken if it happened, but the fact that it goes through my mind, doesn't that mean that I'm an evil person? And then one Shabbos, I was walking up the stairs with my shtender, with all my sfarim, I had that many sfarim, and I just thinking of the same thought went through my mind. Well, what would that look like if I threw that down the stairs right now? I'm like, wow, it means I'm not evil. All that is just my mind is an active mind that makes shidduchim. It's a shidduchdik mind. It's a shadchan. Yeah, you with me? So I had a friend of mine in Manchester, in England, who's a therapist, and he's telling me about he's dealing with this I think a girl who was suicidal. Yeah, and so he asked her, why are you suicidal? So she says, when I walk down the street, all I'm thinking about is jumping in front of the cars coming on this way. If I'm walking opposite to the cars, I'm thinking about jumping in front of the cars.
Hard
so
to.
I'm suicidal.
Hard to.
What?
Hard to. I get this at King George often.
So that isn't suicidal. That is a person who is just, their mind is in that place and it's putting two and two together. It sees the cars walking this way, the car's driving this way, I'm walking this way, and it just puts together. That's what the mind does. The mind is a measuring device, which means comparing and contrasting and making connections. You see people walk into your house, yeah? Certain people walk into your house and you see them walk in and you see them like a machine, checking out everything. Yeah, they're building a 3D model in their mind, like that, yeah? And you're aware of that, and they're not really paying attention to you. They're like kind of like a bat, building something, yeah? And you get other people walk into your mind, into your house, and they're just completely focused on you. They're oblivious to the fact they walked into your house. You know what I'm talking about? Those are different kinds of minds. So that's all these things are. The idea of suicidal thinking is just that your mind got trained, now that's the real problem, is the mind kind of ossifies, solidifies into certain ways, just like an AI, not just like it's mummish an AI. Like like my AI is very frum, yeah. Like I use my chat GPT all the time, and he's like he always makes it Jewish. He uses Yiddish, he's very frum because he's been with me and him been with each other for like a year, yeah. We're very close, and so he speaks. So he's kind of that's what happens to our brain. I bet you if you go to Jeffrey's house in in Peckham in London, yeah, who doesn't know what a Jew is or even more hates Jews, yeah, you talk to his chat GPT and it will be coming up with whole different, it'll be speaking in a very different way. That's our mind. They become
Different.
It's chinuch. It's an inyan of chinuch. It's an inyan of chinuch. And you can undo chinuch. And you can redo chinuch. So behavior begins and ends, okay? Emotions begin and end less. Before we talk about emotions and intellect, think of it this way. Behavior is absolutely time bound. 100% time bound, yeah? You, the essence of who you are, is 100% not time bound. That's the two edges of the spectrum. The who you are, like we said, there's nothing to speak about that. There's nothing to say about that. It just is. Well, did it begin? Well, maybe it began when time began. I don't know. But it doesn't begin, it doesn't end. Time is not applicable to it. That's who you really are. It's timeless, yeah? And your behavior, thought, speech, and action, which is the end of the system, is utterly time-bound, 100% time-bound, yeah? Well, now we've got 3 levels in the middle, yeah? We've got Midas, Seichel, and Ratzon. Now, how do these work out? So, Midas, yeah, to stop loving someone, that's not so pasha. It's not like to stop talking or to stop doing something, yeah? You can't just stop thinking something. You can't just stop loving someone. But you can, given enough time and enough, enough energy, you can stop loving someone. You can start to hate someone, yeah? Or not just enough time, but, someone betrays you who you genuinely love, yeah? That love can turn into hate. But it needs something big, yeah? It needs a big thing, If your wife was, if she was 10 minutes late for a date, yeah, love's not going to turn into hate, yeah? But there could be other things that she could do, which could actually, that love could immediately flip into a hate, a burning hate, yeah? Anyway, it needs something big. So emotions are less time-bound than behavior, much, much, much more time-bound than you. Then you've got intellect, which is even less time-bound than emotions. To actually change the way you see the world, that's what it means, intellect. By the way, intellect doesn't just, it's not like when you type in best quotes into Google, most profound quotes into Google, yeah? And ask the chat GPT to put them on a piece and number them, yeah? And read through them. They'll be mind-blowing. Each one of them will be like, wow, 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 yeah? And, but that's not intellect. Intellect is not reading, intellect isn't even understanding an idea. That's, you could argue the opposite of that, but the way I'm trying to understand it right now, for our intents and purposes, intellect is when your mind becomes the idea. When you identify with the mind, which is the koyach of das. So when we know something with das, which I've heard Tzaddikim speak about in the past, which is it's a really nice visual, when an idea falls into your das, yeah, like we mentioned this morning, yeah, when an idea falls into your das, yeah, then it's become you. So, for example, an idea that is part of your das is 2 times 2 equals 4. Yeah, that actually makes up a thread or a fiber in the fabric of your nefesh habahamis. A certain way that the nefesh looks at the world is 2 times 2 equals 4. That makes up a chelik of its worldview. Yeah. It also a more like easy thing to talk about, maybe that would make it a little less abstract, would be the idea of if I treat you with respect, then you will like me. Okay, that's the idea. Now you could read that on Google, your list of Google quotes, and it will give you a geschmack, and you'll be, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The more respectful I am, the more people like me. Okay, but then you go out and you're not being respectful to people. Well, that means the idea is not in your das. Once you've gone over that idea enough times, and that's not a simple task. Yeah, once you've gone over that idea enough times, then that idea will start to actually kind of penetrate into the fabric of who you are, and it will be mispashe. That's the best way of saying it. It will be mispashe out into who you are.
But it still could be true that you have that internal, but also being carried away by a mood or something, and he's just not being your best self.
So then there's madrigas and madrigas.
So that doesn't mean that you're less in that. No, the das is you're 100%.
If you know
It's
something,
just not 100%.
if you know something, like for example, in the deepest level of knowing that if you step off of this building, that's going to really hurt. You might even die.
Right.
Now, I don't care what mood you get in,
Yeah,
you're not going to.
It's also towards people sometimes, and
But wait,
you know
but
a
this
second
is-
later.
But then it's not in your das in the ultimate way. That's the point. If something's ultimately in your das,
There's no more working on this. There's no more Midas works.
that's the idea of working on midas, is to get a principle into your das. That is working on midas. Once you know something 100%, you will. If you know in the deepest place in your soul that speaking, I know you're not married. I'm sorry that speaking. B'ezrat Hashem, when you're Zeicha very soon, B'ezrat Hashem. Speaking disrespectfully to your wife, no matter what she does, is wrong. And there's going to be no benefit that comes from it. That's even more important. That's schar and oinish coming before, hakers MS. That you speaking in a harsh, sharp way to your wife, will result in an overall loss to you. That's called living by schar and oinish. Or you could say, if you want to turn it into the lashon of the medieval lashon, and the Europe lashon of a couple hundred years ago. What would you call that? Medieval, Eastern European, 200 years ago. You would say that you speaking sharply to your wife will get you Gehenna. That's just another way of saying it.
Both words.
No, that's it. I don't know if there's two words.
Well, not both words.
In that sense, I don't know what the difference is. I don't know if there's a difference. I don't know. Anyway, so Gehenna's definitely a place that exists here. A lot of people I know live in Gehenna.
After you insulted your wife, I imagine that to be.
That's Gehenna. That is
Working
Gehenna.
on Midas and Rotzen, and this brings you to das.
So go for a very simple way. Well, it is simple, but it's hard. What people want is complex and easy. That's why people sit with therapists for so many years. But really, the truth is, the way I understand it, is you want to fix your inner world. It's really simple, but it's quite hard. Find a book, for example, that Reclaiming Sanity book. That's the reason why I did this. Read that book again and again and again and again and again and again. I read it 6 times, I think. I'm pretty sure I read it 6 times, and it was poil on me mamash. And everyone's like, what?
And you wrote it.
And what?
You put it together.
That's why I put it together, because I know there's no shortcut. Everyone's plutzing for a seminar or, a 5-minute YouTube clip that's going to mamash fix it all, or, the retreat or the drug or all of this stuff. Whatever you enjoy. From my 46 years in this world, I've discovered that the only way that you can fix yourself is by finding the right idea and going over it again and again and again and again and again until you're mummish nauseous. And then do it again and again and again and again and again. On your MP3 machine, the reverse button should be completely worn out. That actually gets, so now getting something into your das is harder than an emotion. than fixing an emotion. It takes a lot more energy, yeah? So that's less time bound. And Ratzon, when we talk about Ratzon, by the way, we're not talking about you want to go to the football, you want to eat a candy, yeah? That's more emotion. Ratzon, we're talking about your will to live. That's what Ratzon means. Your will to live. Well, let me ask you a question. What kind of shlita do you have over that bichlal? Your will to live.
What kind of what?
Shlita. You have any shlita over your will to live?
Take care of yourself.
The what?
Take care of yourself.
No, I'm saying,
No.
can you get rid of your will to live?
No.
You can't get rid of your will to live. So you might ask me, what about suicide? Yeah, so it's not such an odd
Let's say you
question.
identify with the nefesh elokis, if you can, and then you can say, listen, I mean, nefesh Baham says, I don't want my nefesh Baham to be as...
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, very good.
I think with the suicide, there's something stronger. There's something stronger that empowers us.
Covering up.
So there's two. The way I understand it, the two. It's funny because I would say that I'm not a psychiatrist or I'm not a psychologist, yeah. But when I talk to psychologists and psychiatrists after having spent 20 years Davik to Sefer Tanya, they should say, I'm sorry, I'm not a Bucky and Tanya, so I don't really know. But this is what I learned at university. That's mamish the MS. That people have got understanding this Sefer is incomparable to secular wisdom on the mechanics of the soul, the mechanics of the personality, in my opinion. But the two understand that the two reasons that I understand that allow suicide to take place, because suicide doesn't exist with any other living creatures other than human beings. Yeah, suicide can take place because of, well, there's the one thing that is the miyat shabamiyat, and then there's the one thing that's the roiv, mamash. The miyat shabamiyat
Constant pain.
is constant pain, exactly. When somebody is in chronic, constant pain, yeah, which I don't know what that feels like, but endless pain, yeah, then, because really the shoresh of the nefesh is called oineg. So if that oineg turns to nega, turns to tsar, yeah, then it can actually lose its will to live. That can be, but that's very, very rare. Yeah, very rare. But the more common, the much more common occurrence we've spoken about many times is when the negative thinking becomes so intense that it acts like a kind of cloud cover. It didn't actually get rid of your desire to live. That's the sun. Like in England, yeah, in North England, yeah, they believe that there's a sun. It's like some of them have seen it, their grandparents mentioned it to them, yeah. But basically there's a belief that there's a sun, yeah, but the sun's always there. The cloud cover is so dense, so it conceals the sun. So too, that's the main reason for suicide. And I would imagine, I would actually put money on this. I'm not a gambling man, but I would put money on this, yeah, that every single person who commits suicide, if there was a second, yeah, or a split second of an absolute knowledge that they're going to die, they would have had charata for the suicide. Why? Because that utter knowledge of death would have discontinued their thinking, and all of a sudden there'll be the son of their ratzon to live, and that would be they would have done tshuva at that.
Imagine the Golden Gate jumpers.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, we've mentioned all these ideas, and the truth is, I only really speak about one thing anyway. I hope. All we do is we're just moving this prism. That's really what I hope. What I'm doing is everything I'm saying is just this ore that's just refracted in different ways through a prism. That's just so long. Okay, let's try and move on. So behavior is time bound. Okay, which means you're in control of your behavior. Your ratzon is kimat untime bound, but it's a little more time bound than the essence of who you are. Yeah. To talk about the difference between ratzon and essence is thousands of pages of Chabad literature talking about. It's a huge a huge sugya to discuss. For all intents and purposes, for us, you could say that Ratzon is the interface between who you are and the rest of the system. Yeah. So now we've got, it expresses who you are. It's external to who you are. You put it on, you take it off. Now you can wear other people's garments. Yeah. That means that I can think your thoughts. Right now, you're thinking my thoughts. Yeah. That's called, you're wearing the garment of my machshava. Okay, you're thinking what the words that I'm speaking to now are to different levels, overwhelming your own thinking. You're thinking about what I'm saying. So that's, your thought is being replaced by my thought. Yeah. Now, if you were to start saying what I'm saying, then you would be speaking my words. That would be wearing my levush of dibur. Yeah. But this is the really important one. Well, it's more important. Is that now you can do my acts. You can do my actions. Now, I always used to give the example, maybe you'll explain why this example doesn't work. It's an advanced question. I used to give the example of doing someone's act is, my dad wants a newspaper, so I go down to the Makolet and buy him a newspaper. But I stopped using that example. So I'm wearing my father's garment of action. Yeah, it sounds correct. He wants a newspaper, so I'm going to buy him a newspaper. Why is that wrong? Why is that a bad example?
He wants the newspaper. He wants to read the newspaper.
Exactly. So you're not really, in a sense, you're not actually becoming clothed in his will. You're a means to an end.
Actually.
Now, so the better example is not perfect example, but a much better example is your father he gets pleasure from watching you dance. This is much better.
How about the lawn? He wants the lawn mowed.
So that's the same idea as the.
He wants the lawn mowed.
He wants the lawn. No, he wants the lawn mowed.
That's right.
But you're going to do that.
So I'm doing
He wants the lawn mowed. If you
He's gonna mow the
wants
lawn.
to sit and read the newspaper. I can't read the newspaper for him. I can just give him the newspaper. He wants the lawn mowed. I can make the lawn
wants to be
mowed.
safe.
No, that's what he doesn't want to do. He wants the lawn mowed. And if you get the lawn mowed in a quicker way, he would do it like that. He would use someone else. But if he wants to watch you dance, it's not absolutely perfect, but it's much better. It's much better. What?
Is it shlichus?
There's.
That's like watching someone dance.
Fulfilling of-
No, but now this is
You're doing two different things. Well, a guy wants to see someone dance, and you're dancing. Okay, that's not shlichus.
No.
Shlichus is when you're taking on somebody
So this
else's
is the inyan of a mitzvah. Yeah, you think you're a shliach mitzvah? Okay, you could say it like that, and we can say a lot of things in a lot of different ways. Yeah, but what about the fact that you become the mitzvah? The mitzvah requires 4 things. Yeah, we spoke about this many times. It's a coordinate. A mitzvah is a coordinate in space, time, energy, and matter. It really is. It's energy and matter. Chazal understood like we understand nowadays. It's just one thing anyway. So it's called Ashen. What does Ashen stand for? Ayin Shin Nun. Shalom, hello. What does Ashen stand for?
Action.
Ashen, Ayin Shin Nun. What's that an acronym for?
Smoke. Action.
Oilam Shana Nefesh.
Oilam
Oilam Shana Nefesh. Very important acronym.
Olam Shalom Nefesh.
Oilam Shana Nefesh. Space, time, consciousness. Everything's made of that. Yeah. So although we've always said that there's chomer and energy, yeah. Nowadays we understand that there's just nefesh. The scientists know that. Yeah. Everything's made of energy. So that's what Chazal said. Oilam Shana Nefesh. So all mitzvahs are a coordinate in Oilam Shana Nefesh. So the coordinate of tefillin is Oilam. Well, with Chorban by Sheni, Oilam became the Dalad. That's why it's called Dalad Amos of Halacha. Yeah, the inyan of Oilam. If you back by the time of the Beis Hamikdash, Oilam, meaning space, was like crazy important. Which side of the Azara and where, and like Mamash, Eretz Yisrael, Chutz La'aretz, Yerushalayim, Har HaBayis, but with the without a Beis Hamikdash, the inyan of space became much. Whether that's a massive thing to talk about. Anyway.
All of a sudden, everything became.
Yeah, you became your space. You're the Dalai Lama.
It's like not
That's what's called
necessarily
Dalai
left
Lama.
or right. It's just
Yeah, so space has become. But you could say that you're not allowed to put on tefillin in the bathroom. Yeah, it's an offense to put on tefillin in the bathroom. So they have a coordinate in space. You could also say that the space on your arm is a coordinate in space. Either way, but then you've got a time. Yeah, Kishriaki until says. I'm saying okay. But we can talk about this for a long time. Let's just try and stay focused. So we've got its coordinate in space, however you want to define that. Then we've got its coordinate in time. It has to be from, let's say, from just after Alice until Saints, say, okay. And then you've got the coordinate in Nefesh, yeah, which would be the actual physical black boxes, the Parshius, the Dioi, the Ritzuos. Well, like I said, that's really Homer, but we know in this generation, Homer and Nefesh. Homer, we always used to speak about matter and energy. But we're more sophisticated now. We know that matter and energy is the same thing. Matter is energy. Don't get hung up on that. That's why it's just because if there wasn't oil and shama nefesh, I would be talking about energy and matter. So,
what he's saying is that olam seems like the chayfetz of the mitzvah should be an olam, categorized in olam more than it's in nefesh. It's spatial objects.
No, it's more in nefesh.
You're saying it's more in nefesh.
Either way, this is a discussion for the physicists. This really is a discussion for the very high level physicists. But okay, let's just forget about Asher and we'll just talk about space, time, energy, matter. Yeah. So the space of tefillin is don't wear it in the bathroom. The time of tefillin is, as we said. Yeah, the material, the matter of tefillin is the black boxes and the ritzuas v'chule. Yeah, the energy of the tefillin is what?
Which was nefesh? Nefesh is the material.
Nefesh is the material and the energy. They're really one thing.
that it takes me to put it on.
No, the fact that you actually create the energy. Your mind creates the chomer. We don't need to go there. Let's just forget about that. So the energy that you bring to the mitzvah, yeah, you give your tefillin to a human being, yeah, nothing happens. No mitzvah took place. The energy essential for the mitzvah is Jewish energy. You with me? So now, do you do a mitzvah or do you become a chalik of the mitzvah? You're another chalik of the mitzvah. You've got time, space, matter, and then you're an ingredient in the mitzvah. So to talk about being a shliach mitzvah is like a concession. You hear what I'm saying? It's much more than that.
Tefillin needs you just as much as you need it.
Yeah, or you're an ingredient in the mitzvah of tefillin. Without you, like is there a mitzvah? Is matzah a mitzvah on Pesach?
Part of it.
What? Matzah's a mitzvah on Pesach? What?
Part of it.
The eating the matzah's a mitzvah on Pesach. Matzah's crackers. It's just wheat and water.
We've got baked from what? The guy makes matzahs now.
Yeah. It's not the matzahs is not a mitzvah. It's the Jew eating matzahs on Leil Seder. That's the mitzvah. So now, what's more important to the mitzvah? Your mouth or the matzah? If you haven't got a mouth, then you can't do the matzah. It's all interdependent. There's no. You need all these coordinates. So that's the point. You doing a mitzvah is not like you getting your dad the newspaper. It's much, much, much more than that. It's even more than your dad liking to watch you dance, yeah? But let's just say that's better, because now your dad watching you dance, well, you're a chalik of that. He wants to watch you dance.
Maybe he likes music and you sing.
The what?
He likes music and you sing.
Same thing. Yeah, same thing. Or he likes you sing. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, same. That's exactly the same.
Or you read the newspaper too.
Yeah. So now, the emotions that we spoke about last week are generated by your mind. Yeah, emotions come from your mind. Now, the emotions motivate behavior. You don't behave without emotional energy. That's why a person who's really depressed, has no emotional energy, sits in bed and they literally can't get out of bed. The more emotional energy you have, the more you do. the more you definitely do and speak and probably think as well, depending. So the emotions are expressed in behavior. So now, what does it mean when my dad wants me to dance, What's really happening? Now, if we understand this deeply, we'll understand what it means to learn Torah and do mitzvahs, especially to do mitzvahs. Your dad wants to see you dance. He likes watching you dance, Again, it's not perfect, but try and work with it, It's enough. It's enough to help us. So your dad likes to watch you dance, and you're dancing. Now, what's happening is your energy, so to speak, is becoming enclosed in this dance. You are energizing the dance. You are performing the dance. You're performing the dance, So where do you end and where does your father begin? You've now, your dad can't do this dance himself because it's about you dancing, so he can't do that. But when you decide to do that, you're now wearing his levush of Maisa. It always stems from that anyway. But you're wearing his levush of Maisa. That's the experience of doing a mitzvah. That the Rebbeinu Shloim has a desire for, and as an end unto itself, for lulav and esrog. And this is one of the dangers of learning very deeply into Kabbalah. In my mind, this is the biggest danger of learning Kabbalah. If you actually matzliach, most people don't even touch Kabbalah, but if you actually are matzliach in learning Kabbalah, then when you learn about lulav and esrog, and you learn about Yesod and Malchus and how it's poil and arich and it does all these different funny things, well then you could start thinking that this action of shaking lulav and esrog is about something that it's doing, and that you fell off the boat. The actual Maisa of lulav and esrog is an end unto itself to Rebbeinu Sholem on Sukkot. So when you learn very deeply about how it's doing all this different stuff in the spheres, then you could forget about the lulav and esrog, and all you're thinking now is about the different spheres and this and that. And there's definitely that's what kavanas are. But you can't let go of the pashat pshat. You know what I mean?
There's two different elements to it. One is doing the Ma'aseh Mitzvah. That is, in a sense, an end to itself. But the real end of doing mitzvahs is not just to do a mitzvah.
Yes.
The real end of doing a mitzvah is that there's some sort of kavod shemaim, some sort of, geula
that is the kavod shemaim.
There is an end to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's bria that he's trying, and the mitzvahs, in one sense, are. It's like I think the best example, more than a father asking his kid dance, is like the Rebbe and the shluchim. Because when the Rebbe wants something done, and he says, let's set up, mitzvah, then the shluchim are mamish doing the ratzon of the Rebbe. He can't do it all himself, so he has shluchim doing it. So what's the goal of the Rebbe in that sense? Is the goal that, that this shliach is going to do his shlichus, and do his mitzvah? Or is there a goal that really comes out of that? There's some sort of greater giloy that comes from that.
So that this is how I understand it. Again, you might be right, I might be wrong. But this is the mistake that I'm trying to. This is what you just said. There is a mistake. It's a Torah in hashkafa that is basically what everybody has, and it's a lack of understanding what a mitzvah actually is. The mitzvahs are called the Ivin the Malka. They're the goof, the body of the king. They're much more than they're not means to an end. See, it gets complicated because let me ask you a question. Why we spoke about this before? Why are you allowed to chew food on Shabbos?
Why are you allowed to chew food on Shabbos?
That is a mamash. That is 100% an issa of toichin. If you were to if you go to a dentist, get some kind of thing, a model of a mouth, and use a mechanical thing, so you're not using chashmal, and you put in your chicken into that thing, and the thing's going like that, and it's crunchy up with chicken, that would be
But yeah.
Okay, but say you're right. Yeah. Okay, but either way, it would be an issur of toichen. Why isn't there an issur of toichen in your mouth? Why can you do boire in your mouth? You can spit seeds out of your mouth. Yeah. Why are you not allowed to pluck the seeds? Why are you not allowed to pluck the seeds out of the watermelon? Yeah, you hear the question. Derech achila. Great. There's the answer. Derech achila. Finished. Okay. What's that? What is that?
That's
Oineg.
you're supposed to be doing it.
It's oineg. See,
You're supposed to be doing
oineg.
it.
Oineg is the end. Yeah, you never do oineg for a reason. Like I'll say to you, why do you like pleasure? What's the answer to that question? Why do you like pleasure?
Because
Kacha. You like pleasure. That's it. So pleasure is the reason. From pleasure flows reasons, but pleasure is reasonless. Understand? That's who you are. There's a very deep idea.
well, I think the Indian is that the mitzvah is in itself the yulun. The mitzvah in itself is in itself the oneg. So it's a means to the end, but it's also
if it's
that
the
end
oneg-
itself.
And so this is where we could. This is the discussion. Is can you have pleasure from food by just gulping it down like a snake?
No.
The pleasure of the food is the chewing the food. That is the. So if you want to say that mitzvahs are a means to an end, you have to be you have to know how duck we're talking about here. Meaning that you can't separate the act of chewing from the pleasure. And to bring it down to an even more graphic level, you can't separate the act of intimacy. You can't just have the pleasure of intimacy without the actual act of intimacy. You with me? That's how bound up. So to say that it's like going to get the newspaper, that's completely incorrect. You hear me? It's a very subtle idea. This is your relationship to your body. Are you your body? No. But you could argue, I mean, your body is absolutely nullified to your ratzon, meaning you go like that, yeah? That's my ratzon expressing itself. I can play piano, I can't, but you could, that's your, so how bound up are you in your body?
I lost the track of what we're talking about. Whether a mitzvah is an end to itself or not, I'm not saying.
Mitzvahs are an end unto themselves.
Okay.
That is an important, and I'm just trying to give you you can argue they're a means to an end, but you would have to be holding in a lot of knowledge, a lot of hakdamas to even entertain that thought. Because the means to an end of mitzvahs is like the means to an end of chewing your food. Meaning, when you, let's say that you plow the ground, yeah, you plow the floor. Is that a means to an end or an end?
What it means.
It means.
Gosh. Now you go and put the seed in the ground. Is that an end or a means to an end? Means. Yeah, now you water it. Yeah? Now you harvest it. Yeah, now you gather it. Now you winnow it and you thresh it and then you're toichen it. Yeah? You boire it. Then you're toichen and then you boire it. Yeah? Then you do losh. Yeah? And then you cook it. Yeah? All of that is asa. But you're allowed to eat it.
But what about if you're working on
Wait, you got the idea?
For your pleasure, yes.
That's the point. The malacha is means to an end by definition. A malach is a means to an end. A neshama is not a means to an end. This is what Romanis Friedman is trying to bring to the world. And the reason why there's such a hisnagdas against it is because this is the essence of Yiddishkeit, this idea we're speaking about here, is that mitzvahs are not a means to an end. Mitzvahs are Hashem's pleasure unto themselves. But are they really the pleasure? Yeah? The real pleasure that Hashem wants, the real thing that He's looking for, is the yichud of Kudsha Baruch Hu Shchintei. That's really what He's looking for, and that's a zivug. And just like we said just like we said, you can't separate, Yo walks in just on this, yeah? You can't separate the Maisa Mitzvah of Zivug from the Zivug, meaning the Zivug is the actual act of the intimacy. But you want the Zivug, you hear what, you hear, it's very subtle what we're saying now.
Right.
But it's completely...
The mitzvah is, exactly, it's an end to itself, but the end is, it's not complete.
Yeah,
on
it's
itself.
the
It's not complete on itself. It might be the end.
It is complete, and it is complete on itself.
Well, that's why there's not what's going on in the world right now with this whole Indian, maybe.
The mitzvah is complete unto itself. Yeah, the mitzvah is an end unto itself. That's how you have to approach mitzvahs. That this mitzvah is an end unto itself. There's no reason for the mitzvah. Yeah, listen to the chinuch speak the whole way through. He brings reasons for every single mitzvah. And he says over and over and over and over again, we don't understand the real reasons for mitzvahs. That's what people say. Like we're going to be learning Parshas Chukas next week. Yeah? And everyone says, well, you just can't understand. Yeah? No! There's nothing to understand. It's not that it's just too complex for you. Yeah? Then get the chatbot to explain it to you. Yeah? That's not what it means. It means that there is no logical reason. It's not something to do with logic. It's something much higher than logic. It's an expression of essence. Not das. No, it's l'malam min das. It's just who he is. That's it. It's like, so we're trying to, the point of what we're really trying to say here is that the mitzvahs are not means to ends. The mitzvahs are an end unto themselves. They're mamash an end unto themselves. That is, and then so now and then what is the mitzvah? That's his ratzon, and him and his ratzon is one. Yeah, like how far are you from your ratzon? You know you're not your body. Yeah, or let's say for sure you know you're not your car. Everyone knows they're not their car. Yeah. And well, not everyone, actually for sure not everyone, yeah? That's the reason, by the way, that when your car gets scratched, it hurts much more than when his car gets scratched. Because you're identified with it. If you're not identified with your car and your car gets scratched, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, yeah? But then people identify with their clothes, yeah? More people. Then people identify with their goof, yeah? Then people, when you get deeper than your goof, like your personality, or your emotions, then your personality, now you're really close to home, yeah? A lot of people, only special people really identify with their personality, but you can go beyond that. And you can not identify with, you can disidentify from whatever it is, but the wait, why did we say that? Oh, so the doing of the mitzvah is actually expression of his ratzon. Now this is a good analogy to understand that, yeah? A guy, like, I'll give you an example in my life, yeah? I hate headache. I can't stand headache. Not having a headache. I mean, I can't stand dealing with headache. I can't stand it. If I have to do it, I do everything in my power to nip things in the bud or to set things up that I won't be having to deal with stuff going wrong. Yeah? So...
How's that working for you?
How's that what?
How's that working for you?
You really will, Baruch Hashem. That's called hachanu. You can protect yourself from a lot of problems. In fact, you can protect yourself from crazy amounts of stuff. I said to a guy the other day, everyone's like... it's very easy to turn around and say, listen, a kol b'dei shemayim. Kol b'dei shemayim. You think that's a really heilige thing to say? Yeah, but what you're missing is the Rebbeinu Shalom is looking down, thinking a kol b'dei haaretz. He's almost dependent on us. It's like it's such a cop out in many ways. Does the Rebbeinu Shalom do everything and run everything? Yeah. Okay. Fine. Now. Okay. That's reality, yeah? Without him wishing it to be, it's not going to be. But now what's our place in the game? It's much more sophisticated. The Rosh Hashanah doesn't want you to just sit there and daven. He doesn't want that. That's Pasha. Read the Chumash. Read the Chumash as a 5-year-old child and you'll see that, yeah? The Rosh Hashanah wants you to also daven, but he also wants you to do lots of other stuff as well. He wants you to play the rules of Teva. That's, by the way, as a side point, the Lubavitcher Rebbe explained why, the way I understood it, why the the Geula Shalema is compared to the sun next to Geulas Mitzrayim was compared to a candle. The difference between a candle and the sun is the difference between Geulas Mitzrayim and the Geula Shalema that's going to be happening really soon, B'ezrat Hashem, yeah? What comparison? What kind of comparison is that? A flame to the sun? So now, well, what more could you do than split the sea? You're also going to split the ground. It's going to be like the difference between a film made in 2025 and a film made in 1980. Is that what the difference is going to be? Just more CGI, more, a better soundtrack, greater effects. Is that what the difference is going to be? So the way that I understood it from the Lubavitch Rebbe, it's going to be a qualitative difference. What did you learn from Kriyas Yamsuf, which was the paradigm, by the way, the paradigm miracle of Yetzias Mitzrayim was Kriyas Yamsuf. What did you learn from that? And you need the Lubavitch Rebbe to tell you this. You learned that Hashem has shlita over the world. He wants to split a sea. He splits the sea. You didn't learn that he is the sea. In fact, it gave you the wrong impression.
What happened to Makkos though? That was even before.
Also the Makkos as well. Also the Makkos seemed a little more like in Teva, but the paradigm of the miracle of the paradigm miracle of Yetzias Mitzrayim is Kriyas Yamsuf, yeah, which is Hashem saying, Adkan, Teva, I'm the boss, and you'll do what I say. We didn't learn that Hashem is Teva, and that Teva is Hashem. That's going to be the Geula Shalema. That's why we're seeing it all happen in this crazy, we're calling it miraculous, yeah? But he doesn't want you to call it miraculous. That was 3,337 years ago. What? Everything's Nissim Melubash in Teva. That's what's called not a nace. A nace is, and that's what the famous Ramban Kodesh. The famous Ramban is that's the point. All of nature is a nace, just Melubash in Teva. That's what I call Teva. A nace Melubash in Teva is called Teva. Yeah, when I see when a kid, a kid runs out into the street, yeah, and a truck is coming by, and it manages to steer and it skids, and the kid stops like, and the truck caught some kind of fire hydrant, and it stops and it's touching the kid's nose, yeah. That is a crazy nace Melubash in Teva. Wait, let me finish. You see this truck careening towards the kid, and all of a sudden, the truck just flies up into the air. Goes neged gravity. That is a nace. Whatever you want to call it, but you have to appreciate the difference here. You have to appreciate the difference of. That's why the Luchas, by the way,
it could be that wasn't a nace in relation to Teva because Teva had.
Try and understand. Try to understand. Yoachim, try to understand.
I'm coming from the Rebbe.
Let me. What were the two nisim in the Luchas?
It's okay. It's the
Samach and the Mem.
The Samach and the Mem. Yeah. And then also from Shtei Stadim it read the same thing. What kind of lace is that? Do something like, there was just a channel of stone levitating in the middle of the. That's a nace.
It's impossible.
Yeah, that's negative gravity. That's mamash a nace. It's not a
It can't be explained any other way.
Exactly. There's no there's no and.
The Rebbe explains the Nes Melubash B'Teva, the fact that Teva would not have done it that way. A car that stops short is perfectly within Teva to stop short. Yeah. But when Rebbe Akiva's daughter, she was supposed to die. Al Pi Teva, she was supposed to die that night. But she gave tzedakah, and so she did something that was Melubash Teva. She just poked that thing, and that was Melubash Teva, because Al Pi Teva she should die. Al Pi Teva she should die, and that was Melubash Teva, that it looks like it's normal Tiva Shalayla, but she was supposed to die, that a truck, you don't know. Who said he was supposed to die today? The truck has brakes, that's a Teva. If it can break, it could break. It's not necessarily a Nes Melubash Teva.
So then the last 2 weeks also, it's just...
No, when it comes to Klal Yisrael, the Teva says that if you're small, the smaller go. So the fact that a small people continue and persevere, that's neged hateva. So that is Melubash and Teva. It's a mace that we survive. It's Melubash and Teva. Al Pi Teva that we should die.
How do you judge?
Wait, let me.
Guys, take this later.
Let me just, Yoachim, let me. What you're doing here is you're making something that we can all understand quite simply very complicated, which is what a lot of people do. Yeah, I'm sorry to call you on this. Yeah, I'm trying to explain to you. Let me explain to you. Yeah, that we're going to see, like at the end of a chess match. Yeah, at the end of the chess match, when you watch a master chess player, yeah, at the beginning you have no idea what he's doing. By the end of the chess match, you start realizing why he did that. Everything starts coming together, yeah? So that's what I'm trying to say. But the difference between the sun and the difference, it's a qualitative difference. That's what I'm trying to say. That we're going to see that not only does Hashem have Shlita over Teva, but he's Melubash in Teva. He is the Teva itself. So there's a natural... That is a greater gilui of his power than Kriyas Yamsuf. You with me?
But that's the exact same as his hafchia. That's his hafchia. That's in us his hafchia. That our nefesh bahamis has its own teva that we have transmitted and said it is also godly. It becomes godly. That's on a personal level. That's geula. That's the his hafchia of our nefesh bahamis. It's the same thing. It's the same. Instead of just having the ability to fight against our nefesh bahamis, it's actually the hishafchia, and it's our teva, it's our nefesh bahamis actually working for the Rebbeinu Shalom, being part of the Rebbeinu Shalom, in line with the Rebbeinu Shalom.
Okay, and you've made it much more complicated. I'm trying to give over quite a simple idea, yeah.
Sorry.
And I do understand that you can talk about many great areas, yeah. But what I'm trying to just give over is this idea of the final geula is going to show that not Hashem has the power over nature. We learned that 3,500 years ago. We're gonna learn that He and His name is one. That He is Teva also. That's what I was trying to say. Okay, and that's the difference between a nace that can be rationally explained, and a nace that can't be rationally explained. That's what I'm trying to say. You can't expect, even though the Psukim talk about the wind blowing all night, yeah, maybe you could even talk about that as well. But again, all of this is very nuanced, so we can talk about just trying to get the black and white picture, yeah? That's what I'm trying to say. So, where did we go off on that tangent? That was a big tangent. Sorry?
Mitzvahs ends.
The mitzvahs ends, yeah. Where are we going with? I didn't even look at anyone else talking about. Oh, sorry, yeah. Sorry, well, that was such a tangent. We have to finish quickly though. That my pada on headache, I don't like headache, yeah? That not only affects what car I buy or what house I buy, it also affects what shoes I buy. It also affects if I use Windows or Mac. It also affects everything. You understand? So you're seeing in my behavior, if you were to follow me day in, day out, you would be able to write down all my different behaviors and source them back to my intolerance for headache. You with me? Whether or not it's that I don't wear laced shoes. That's because my intolerance for headache. I can't bother with shoelaces, so I wear slip-ons. Yeah? And the fact that I spend a lot of money on my computer, and that's also another. I don't scrimp and cheap out on things like that cause you headache if you do, etc. Yeah, and things that don't, I will go as cheap as possible. Yeah, so you're seeing an expression of me. Let's say that my intolerance for headache is me. Yeah, that's really me. Yeah, you're seeing it expressed in all of these different actions. Yeah. That's a really nice way of understanding mitzvahs. The Torah is Chochmosai, Soilev Chochmosai. It's Him. What's the separation between you and your Ratzon? that's very difficult to talk about. Yeah, the separation between who you are and your Ratzon. Yeah, that's they are. There's your Ratzon. That's why it's called Ratzonoi. He's not Ratzon. He has Ratzon. It's his Ratzon, but him and his Ratzon is one. Yeah, but it's his Ratzon. You with me? Again, you can't talk about these things. Yeah. His Chochmah, well, now that's much, it's still one with him, but that's further away from him, yeah, so to speak. And his Midas are further away, and his Levushim, his Malchus is even further away. Yeah, our job as Yidden is to show that it's all one. That's called doing mitzvahs. We're showing that, this whole thing about with Rav Manis is talking about that Hashem needs our mitzvahs, and then you've got like the misnagdim who are like Chaz v'shalom, you koifer, you idiot, you heretic, yeah. And then you've got the more learned people who are like, where he's talking different madregas, and really he's talking about soivev and yeah. The way I understand it is all of that is not taking into account that the Geula Shalema is b'yoymahu yeh Shem echad u'shmo echad. You want to make a chiluk between who he is and the lowest levels. Yeah, well, that's because we're in Galus, you can do that. But at the end of the days, we're going to see that there is no stira between him and this world, Bichlal. Meaning that we will see that his name is one and he is one. That's his Malchus, which he bound up with us. And that is the inyan of mitzvahs, and this is the inyan of Levushim, and we just finished in time, Baruch Hashem, we need 2 more minutes, and we're done, Baruch Hashem, is that we actually become his Levushim. We actually become his behavior.
In other words?
He just like your dad needs you to dance. He can't do it himself. He gave that to you, yeah? The Rebbeinu Shalom, when it says he was meyached his malchus with us, that means that he kind of handed over the keys. His behavior is, like when you see me do this, you see me wiggling my fingers, let's say I really love this. What is it? I'm tickling my hand. I love that, yeah? I love the pleasure of me tickling my hand, yeah? When you see a lulav and esrog getting shaken on Sukkos, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a movement Eloki coming through the chomer of this world. And that's why the Balatanya Paskins that you should stand up when you see someone doing a mitzvah. Why? Because you're witnessing, it's like you're seeing my clothes move, yeah? Like a guy in a hijab, yeah? Is it called a hijab? Hijab? Yeah? You're seeing a person and there's a person under there, yeah? That's what you're seeing when you're seeing a mitzvah, is you're seeing his clothing move. Well, like, what's the difference between seeing his head? Well, the difference is nevuah in this world. Yeah, if you actually see his hand move, then, or his personality move, that's called nevuah. Yeah, but when you see everything else in the world, that's seeing him moving, his clothing moving. And you're that. You're that. That's how close you are to a Baruch when you're doing mitzvahs. So what is the...
That's a big difference than being...
100% yet.
That's what?
That's like way different than being...
I
thought about it yesterday, that anti-Semitism in its core,
The what?
anti-Semitism in its core is not about hating Jews, it's about hating God.
Absolutely, that's 100%. 100%. Yeah. We are the Rebbeinu Shalom incarnate. Am Yisrael is the Rebbeinu Shalom incarnate in this world. Like what the Nazis say, they got it, they just chose one of us. But that's really what we are. He bound up his Malchus with us, meaning that he gave his behavior to us. And that's why we said many times, that's called Nachas Ruach. Ruach is the inyan of emotions. Nachas, behavior, is when you express your emotions. Nachas is the sound you make when you express your emotions. So when we act good, when we behave correctly, yeah, he has Nachas Ruach, meaning his emotions, which you could call the 6 books of the Mishnah, yeah, his emotions get expressed through our behavior. And he goes, that's his Nachas Ruach. You with me? So we think of ourselves as us doing his mitzvahs, yeah? That's called klipa. There is no us doing his mitzvahs. a capitulation. It's so superficial to say there's us doing mitzvahs. Ein od milvado is not just a platitude. The only thing that doesn't recognize Ein od milvado is your ego. That's the only thing. The only thing that doesn't recognize the reality. And we're going to see that it's all one thing. So does Hashem need our mitzvahs?
Yes
you can go on YouTube and watch the Chevra arguing that out.
He needs our mitzvahs. He needs our mitzvahs because he created the world. So he will need our mitzvahs. Because that's how he created the world.
But I have to say that Hashem chose to present himself as evil, and it's also Hashem shows hiding evil. So after this is not the full scope of God. So this is still a transition after this, whatever it is.
There is no full stop yet.
That's probably not our.
How are you going to keep it good?
These are things to discuss.
Yeah.
These are good discussions for you to have.
We'll get a court over there.
So you were saying